All right, welcome to tape 20. So Saturday morning still. Tape 19 kind of got cut off at the end. I don't know why, but I was finishing up the rudder shape. As you can see, I ran the grain this way on it. And then what I did was I marked a center line in it, just looking at the overall shape, make sure I'm happy with it. And then I'm going to embed the carbon in it, and then sand to the carbon and get it to a really sharp point. And that keeps from getting dings. 4 pound wood is great, but again, it's really soft and easy to dent. All right, so before I do that though, I want to glue in the back bulkhead on the take apart tailpiece. Well, off camera, I kind of just cleaned it up a little bit, cleaned up the back, got it ready to go. Put the put a temporary locating hole to get to the bolt. What I'm going to do now is I got a piece of wax paper in here. It's really going to help me. Take this paper back a little bit. It's just going to help, keep it from gluing it together. These are anytime I'm going to take apart plane, the one fear is that you tape it together. So I got a piece of wax paper sandwiched between the two. Bulkhead here, I'm going to run a little bit of epoxy bead on this one. And then I'm going to put my piece over it. I'm going to tape it down and hold it in place. And once that's done, we're going to work on the bottom half of this. Kind of fits in pretty good right here. What we're going to do is we're going to work on the bottom half next to blocking in this bottom half here. I will put a screw here. Some guys will put a pin. I just prefer to put a screw there. I just like the way it pulls it in better, locks everything in place, doesn't look shimmy around. But so far so good. We will add a little bit of an edge in here too, of a 1/64 plywood to kind of help just line this piece up and get it lined in perfectly. And we were still working on fitting up the rudder fin, but that's somewhat close. What I'm debating on doing here is I could put a filler piece in to fill it up, to match it in, some soft balsa and just taper it in. Or I may leave it open as an outlet, put some fins in it for decoration, but just let it as an air exhaust out. I may do that. I'm still kicking that around. All right, so we're going to glue that in, and then when I glue is drying, we're going to work on the rudder fin some more. All right, again, I'm using this DP 100. It's like 5-minute epoxy, I would say. Works pretty good. Again, the only downside is you gotta use up an applicator every time you use it. But they're pretty cheap. You can get them on Amazon. Yeah. So we're gonna run a bead in here. What I'll do is I'll move this out of the way so we can kind of shift the plane a little bit. This video will probably be a little bit shorter because it's not a little bit of wash and glue dry, I guess, is what I would call it. What I do is I always just take the first little bit and put it on something else. Again, you don't want to make this a non-take apart plane, so putting just enough glue but not too much. So we're lining up our piece back here. Fit it on nicely. Alright, what I'm going to do is use some tape to hold it in place. Scotch tape or masking tape works. I just happen to have some Scotch tape right here. So just push it all the way in. Just kind of hold it down here in the back. just want to get it lined up. And use the tape to kind of hold it in place. Alright, so we'll babysit it a few minutes here. Just look at the bottom, make sure we're lined up pretty close. Alright, we'll kind of babysit this for a second. You just want to make sure it lines up with the rest of the turtle deck. That's good. Alright, pretty good. Alright, gonna let that dry for a minute. We'll work on the rudder. Once that dries, we'll unbolt it. Take the tape off, we'll stick the 440 adjuster in, and we'll unbolt it. So. Alright. So these 1mm carbon rods, you could use bigger rods if you want. 1mm seems to be a good size. Get them off Amazon. They're pretty cheap. I got about 15 of them. And again, you just kind of lay them in. So I did with the ballpoint pen is I kind of put a little bit of a groove in there to kind of help me where the center was. What I'll do is I'll mark it, you know, kind of get it laid out where I want it. And this is, we use all thin CA here. It's usually a challenge not to, how do you say, glue your fingers together. I want to make a little more of a groove here. I want it to fit in, sit right in the middle. Just helps me with the putting it in. The tricky ones are the curves. Alright, so I got it in the center, and what I'll do is just tack it in. This is this is one of those places where you're probably going to glue your fingers to the part quite a few times. At least I do. So you can see it, and I'll kind of let it run down into the groove a little bit. Just making sure it's lined up good. Because this is, you're going to sand to this mark, so. You just want to take your time and make sure you get it roughly in the middle. Gotta get a new tip. I got some of my buddies texting me here. My buddy Jose Modesto asking me if I'm building. Alright, so I got the first one glued in. Now we're going to cut the excess off. I use a pair of side cutters to do this. Cut it off like that. So I'll leave this one high. Now, like I said, I'll use these 1mm rods on stab, leading edge. I'll even use them on the elevator trailing edge, just because it just adds some stability to it, and it keeps it from getting dinged. I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse than a ding in an elevator surface. I'm gonna try it on my flaps are typically I run flat flaps. On this one, I'm gonna run a set of tapered flaps. And I got 1mm carbon rod that's 36 inches long. So that will help. I'm gonna run along the trailing edge and I'm gonna taper the flap to that. So we'll see how it turns out. I don't think there's any real advantage in tapered flaps, flat flaps. I think it's just it's really just a cosmetic thing. Oh, with my finger. All right. That curve is a little bit challenging. We're gonna just run a bead of thin CA in here, let it soak in. So what we're gonna do, I'm actually gonna warm up the carbon. So there's resin in carbon. If you heat it, it becomes a little more pliable. Slowly working around this curve. It kind of embedded itself in the balsa a little bit, which is fine because I'm going to sand it to a point anyway, which actually helps with the roundness of the curve. Just kind of continue to work it in there around that. As you can see, kind of just got to be patient here around the curve. Let it, because you're under tension here, and it will pop up. This is likely where you glue your fingers. Alright, so I'm going to use a little kicker right here, just to kick off that spot there. And as promised, glue my finger to it. Now we're just lining up the rest of this, the back, to meet up with the back. Perfect. All right. Okay. And what you do is you trim the excess away. These 1mm carbon rods good to put in places if you got anywhere you don't want to get dinged up or dented up. Use them in air inlets, outlets. They're pretty good like that. All right, let this dry for a second. Just cut the front off. Now the carbon is a little bit harder to sand. So we'll just let it dry a second. Just make sure I got it glued everywhere. So what I will do is just run a bead of thin CA, just let it run around it. It'll harden up the edges, so I'll just let that dry a second. Now we're going to sand it all in. So alright, so I'm going to start out with a block on it. Use a fresh piece of 120. We're getting down to almost all the structural details done. Next up is the what I'll call the finishing work, or all cosmetic after this. Once this piece is set up, mechanically it's in place, the fin is on, right? The bottom is attached the way I want it. You know, that's really it for what I call like the main structural work, and then it's really just starting to finish in details. You know, I gotta finish up the tip edges. They're a little rough. Gotta cut off for the landing gear plugins. Gotta put the tail wheel in. What else the other thing I gotta do? Gotta put the tail wheel and tail wheel mount in. So I'll do that. And then the only other things I gotta make the elevators and flaps, which I'll do. Which I'll do a tape on it, because I'll show you how I taper them. I made a couple jigs to kind of help me along with it. Alright, so with a piece of 120 and a block, I'll start it with that to just kind of flatten the whole surface out. And again, with 4-pound balsa, you gotta be very careful not to press while you're sanding. Just let the weight. This is pretty rough, but I just want to get it close. Then I'll go to 220, then 320. Just trying to bury the seams here. Now we will start on the tapering. What I like to do is kind of way to the edge. You can tell when you get to the carbon because it starts to go black. So what I'll do is I'll get it set up. I use this foam pad here to kind of protect it. So what I want to do is kind of start here and just keep working my way down around it a little bit. Okay. So about 1/2 inch, 3/4 out. About 1/2 inch, 3/4 out, I'll start sanding it flat, and then I'll kind of work it, keep working it that way. I'll go flat here, and then I'll put a little angle on, and I'll keep working it. What I'll do is I kind of just work it. I don't know how well you can see it, but you get it right to a nice razor point, and it adds a bunch of rigidity for almost no weight at all. So it's definitely something. Protects the edges when people ding it up from launching it. But yeah, so I kind of just work the rest of this in. And this is all rough sanding in, and I'll go over with 220 with a block, and I'll get to 320 to kind of final sand it out. So if you look, you continue to work it in. You gotta work the curve in. I will make a comment on rudder shape and design. And so what I found is the higher the vertical rudder is, the more in the wind you're gonna weather vane. It's gonna catch it. I got to about a certain height. I think it's about 4.5 inches or so. 4 inches, but probably about 4.5 from the stab up to the top. That seems to work for me. The other thing is this: the shape, the back half of it. You want to make sure it doesn't make anything not look good. I had one where I cut the rudder back like this. It was painted red, and it looked like a mailbox on the outside corner. It looked like the mailbox flag that you drop on your mailbox, that red flag. So you want something that's distracting either. It used to drive me crazy. So much so that I actually changed the shape of the rudder. Alright, so we'll just continue to work it in. It gets a little more tricky around the curve, so you got to kind of work your way around it. You gotta be extra careful around this little piece in the front. It's real easy to snap it off or break it off. I'll finish that. I'm actually going to use my Dremel here to turn it way down and kind of just work this in. What I'm doing is I'm working from the carbon out. Because the balsa will cut real easy. I'm at a very slow speed. I just like to live on the edge a little bit. You can hand sand this in too though. Kind of worked the point in about this is about 1/4 of an inch in. I blended it, so now I'll finish it off here. Okay. That's pretty close. Now I got 220 on a block, and I'll kind of just work it in. Really just now cleaning it up, blending it in. And you can tell when you hit the carbon because the paper sounds different. Not how well you can see it, but razor edge, perfect. Got to just finish the other side up a little bit. Okay. Weighs 0.3 ounces, so just a little more than 1/4 of an ounce. That's pretty good. So I'll continue to work the finish in here, just get it to be where it's blow blended in nicely. And using the foam here allows you to press in without having the piece get damaged or go anywhere else. So you kind of just press that corner down. And this is a block, a Dora block. They make them so it has a little bit of flexibility in it. Okay. Pretty close, pretty done. Now the last thing is with a piece of 320. Alright, so a piece of foam back. I use foam back 320. This stuff is Mirka, M-I-R-K-A. You can get it on Amazon. It's a little expensive, but works really well. You can get it in different grits. What I do is I cut them into little pieces. But I'll use these a lot, especially with primer, because it kind of gives you the opportunity to sand with a block because it's got foam backing on it, but it's also able to take contours in. So I had a piece of the carbon split. Not a big deal, we're just going to fix it now. So what we'll do is hold it down. This is right where the bend is. So what we'll do is just throw some extra CA. And what I always do is around the edge, I will finish this off with thick CA. This is where it's under a bunch of stress, so not surprised. Yep. Alright, so we'll just sand that in now. Use the 220 block here just to kind of finish that off now. Again, just blending everything in here. Once I'm happy with everything blended in, what I will do is run some thick CA right around the edge of this, and then take a paper towel and wipe it off. So, pretty good so far. All right, let's see how it is dried up. Oil deliveries. Alright, so we got an oil delivery here. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but that's me getting some fuel oil here for the boiler. Sorry about the noise. the fuel oil guy here a second. Now I'll just run some thick CA on this while I'm waiting. I'll take my paper towel and just rub it in. Try not to get the paper towel stuck to the piece. That is a real headache outside. Alright, so now I've hardened up all the edges. And all you do is take a piece of 320, just knock all the fuzz down. Oh man, that CA will definitely clear the sinuses out. Okay, our rudder fin is ready to go on. If I wanted to, I could glue it on right now. You know, once you get it glued on where you want, you get the bottom attached, and you just run a straight edge and cut it off there. Or whatever shape you want to put on it. Okay. Alright, let's see if I glued this together or not. Kind of just reaching in here to find the bolt. What I will do is I will open this up more. There we go. Oops, got some glue in there, I guess. Not all the way out with the bolt. So this piece is pretty fragile until the rudder gets on it. It's like I made it a non-take apart tail. Let's see where. Where is my good exact knife? Alright, I must have got some glue somewhere in here. So what we'll carefully do is try to get between the bulkheads. Okay, it's loose over there. Okay, it's loose. So I want to kind of see what's going on in here. I don't think it's glued together. I think the bolt is just not out of the way. Yeah. Alright, the bolt is just stuck here. I gotta get it loose. Ah, that's coming. We're gonna have to give the hole some clearance, the bolt hole some clearance to get it free. But it's the bolt hole they're on. And we'll make some clearance. These, you always want them, because they have to come on and off, and you want them to be somewhat easy to come on and off. There we go. There we go. So we will open up this hole just a touch, but that's what's holding it on. All right, see, there we go. And that bolt hole's a little tight, so what we'll do is we will run a drill through there just to give us a little bit of clearance. Hopefully I don't lose the washer as I do this, but that's usually what happens. Okay. We got some glue in the hole. Alright, let's just check the fit up. That's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty close. I'm just running some thin CA in here to seal up around all the edges. It's like insurance. Just to make sure if any of your fiberglass is loose on the inside, the CA will harden it up for sure. All right. Alright, looks like you're able to get it on and off without a problem either. Alright, we'll let it dry for a second. Alright, well that's drying for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the lip around the bottom. So I'm just going to take a piece of 64th and just line right here. It'll stick out just a little bit, just enough to catch that piece and keep it on it. Will definitely help up with the fit up and anything pushing in. So let me see if I scrap piece of 64th. If not, I'll go get some. No. This is really just adding to the edge of it. Is that enough? Alright. So about 1/8 strip, maybe a little more, maybe 3/16. Just fine. I only really need about a 1/16 to stick over, maybe. So put the back angle. Alright. Just hold it up against it flush. Put just a little bit of glue in there. Gotta be careful, you don't want to make it a non-take apart tail here. Alright, so that's one side in. Alright, so we'll just take a little bit off this, just because there's an angle on it. Yep, glue my fingers right to it as usual. Alright, that just adds a really nice edge to it. And it will allow you to kind of put this piece on. We may have to sand some of it a little bit. What you want to sand is a little bit of back angle on it. Okay, so that fits up pretty good. I'll just let that glue dry. Take no chances. But that just keeps it to line it up perfectly flush with the sides and then like the side to side. What we'll do here in the bottom is we're going to add a little bracket. Just want to glue that seam a little better. We'll do is we'll put a same thing. We'll put a piece of 1/8 plywood here, 1/8 plywood on this side, with a little hole. All right, that's all I have time for today. So you kind of got 2 videos today. I hope maybe I'll get back in the shop later. Got some things to do around the house. But next up is fitting up the bottom here and getting it to bolt it all together. Once I get it all bolted together, we'll put the cosmetic entry in for the ball driver. Same thing on the bottom. I mean, that'll really hold the tail in securely. Once that's all done, we can go put the fin on. And then we're pretty much just about done with all the structural stuff. Then we'll move on to cutting the battery hatch, taking out the dummy motor, finishing up the spinner ring. I did do a little work off that off camera. I'll just kind of show you. I wasn't thrilled with the way the fiberglass ended, so what I did was I took a piece of really light 3/16 balsa and I put it in here a bit oversized, so I still got to clean it up. And what I did was I put a piece of 120 sandpaper on the back of my spinner plate and just worked it in like this until I got it to the depth I want. So now what I gotta do is I just gotta finish off the outside. Gotta be really careful. This is really light balsa, so you can really chip it easily. So I'll just take my time with that. Once I'm done, I'll harden it up with CA, and the nose ring is then perfectly parallel to exactly what I want. Alright, so hope you like the videos. If you like them, click the like button, subscribe, tell your friends. Everybody, the more we share, the better we're all going to be here. Alright, so thanks for watching.